we'll go ahead and start it up. It's 4:45 a.m. Tuesday, January 25th, 2021. Let's talk. I'm pretty fucking tired. And just like emotionally exhausted. As I posted about, no, I don't know, a day or so ago, after 130 days of waiting, I finally got my hearing scheduled for appealing the decision to reject my unemployment after paying it out for, let's see, April, May, June, July, August, 5 months. It paid out for 5 months, and then they retroactively canceled it and back-charged me for everything I'd been given, which naturally I didn't have anymore because it was being used on expenses so I could survive, which is the entire point of unemployment. And I appealed it, but any appeals have to go through a civil court system thing that we have here. It's not like a formal hearing, it's an informal hearing. But, you know, I immediately sent in a request for that hearing the day that I became aware that this was an issue. And it took 130 days to get back to me. It's more than 4 months. That's insane, right? That's insane. Assuming that this was my only source of income, and it was, and this was, you know, in theory, supposed to help keep me alive. Having that drop out and being retroactively charged, and then not just being left hanging for 4 fucking months. It's been a bad situation, to put it politely. So maybe on Thursday, when I have my hearing, there's a few things to cover, right? Number one, to argue or make an appeal as to why I do fit the qualifications, which I need to review my arguments for that, but I set that down months ago. And a part of that's going to necessitate why I left my job. Yes, the job I left in April. Early April. Of last year. Yes, the one that's taken April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Almost 10 months now to get around to talking about. Alright, yeah, not exactly fresh in my mind. Okay. Then, I think there's secondarily the matter of appealing the back charge. And tertiary, etc. Things related to that. It's just fucking absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Now, at the time of my rejection, Washington State was flailing because, due to an incredible amount of fraud, a good deal of money had been siphoned away from the state and out of the country. Washington was not unique in this regard, happened in many states, but panicked as they were, thinking that they overreacted, overstretched, overreached. Now, to be fair, my initial claim was entirely on the grounds that I was observing the guidelines at the time that I put in the appeal, in my interpretation of the guidelines, which my employer did not share. And I focused primarily on that I didn't consider it an essential position by the definitions of the time and the potential health risks it put me and everyone else in that position. And I will further argue that, but as we've come to learn, essential position has grown to mean anything and everything under the sun. So that's really a weak point, and I don't expect them to concede, or at best, I expect them to. I would hope, at the very least, that they would see it as a unwillful misinterpretation on my part. Not willful, not intentionally committing any fraudulent interpretation or activity. And secondarily, I can go into talking about reasons that I left that I didn't have the character space to get into in my initial application for unemployment, i.e. my moral and ethical reasons for wanting to leave the company, which I did not include in my initial application because I was concerned that they would be seen as less tangible and more insubstantial. I was worried that my moral and ethical misgivings would be dismissed out of hand and was afraid to share them. I think I have more of standing to qualify under the ethical and moral reasoning, which, in short, basically boils down to increasingly my position was de-emphasized the customer service concierge role, less on administration, less on, actually making the folks who live there not acting in a service role to them, but more so the role became increasingly more and more about security. And it got to the point in the last month prior, in March of 2020, it got to the point where after a couple of break-ins that we were aware of, the new standing orders handed to the concierge staff from management at that time were that we were to call the police on any homeless people who were in the area, regardless if they were actually on our property, which the vast majority of time they weren't, regardless of if we saw anyone whatsoever loitering who looked homeless. And particularly, he emphasized it was discriminatory. It was willfully and intentionally discriminatory in his own words to try to create a sense that this wasn't a good place for them to hang around. In effect, to create an atmosphere of fear. The order was effectively to harass these people using the police as that mechanism. Not only is that, in my mind, unconscionable to do to another human being, particularly the most vulnerable people in our community. Further, if you want to take a more civic-minded, more centrist-minded leverage on it, it's an incredible waste of public resources in a city that, according to those who support the police, is understaffed and overtasked. The decision was not made by a spiteful man. It was made by a manager who was trying his best to placate an unsettled and fearful board who had just had their very expensive condo complex broken into in the middle of the night while I was on lunch break because we only ever had one person on desk, therefore the cameras could not actually be watched 24/7. There were other changes in policy regarding security that had made me wary and uncomfortable, requiring it so that we were to take as few breaks as possible, to stay at the desk as much as possible, that we were not to help residents with things, but rather to stay at the desk watching the cameras for our breaks, for lunch breaks, we were effectively required to stay at the desk. Even though, by Washington law, that's some really shaky ground you're getting onto. I felt that the management of the staff, as handled by the building manager at that time, or facilities manager at that time, was not an atmosphere that it was not a position that I was comfortable ethically or morally working with. If someone breaks the law, I will, as professional obligation, be inclined to notify the proper authorities. Personally, I'm a little uncomfortable with that, as police brutality has been demonstrated time and time again in this last year, but that aside, in my time working there, I had called the police prior when there was actually cause to do so, but it needs to be made very clear that in the current interpretation as of last year, and as of now, insofar that I'm aware, individuals sweeping on or camping on public property are not in violation of loitering laws so long as they do not disrupt the flow of traffic. I believe. Now, it's been a considerable amount of time since I read that interpretation, i.e. about a year. So I think that second position, is a bit more sturdy. But it touches on a lot of sensitive issues. It touches on homelessness, which is a very sensitive issue, and a very pressing issue in my city and in Washington. It touches on classism. It touches on the use of police by the wealthy to isolate themselves from the rest of their community. There's so many things that make it something that I'm anxious to speak about to an authority figure within the greater state bureaucracy. So that's why I tried to go with the COVID reasons, or why I left. Yeah. It's an informal hearing. Now, I could have a representative there to represent me. There are a few that are pro bono, or will only charge you if you win, and only then as a suggested donation of a certain percentage of your unemployment for the next month. Which is all reasonable, quite reasonable. But given that it's a phone call, I feel that the fewer voices in the call, the better. Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about that. I've been trying to schedule an interview with a position with a local escape room company for a remote position. Part-time remote position, though, as a game master, doing something I'm very well qualified, very experienced in doing. And I think would enjoy doing. My only apprehension is that it's $16.75 an hour, which is a little above minimum wage. Not substantially above minimum wage. And it's part-time. I would need to work approximately 26 hours a week in order to pay bills, in order just to pay bills at this position. Given it's a part-time position, I'm expecting that it's actually expected hours are somewhere around 20 hours a week. And if this can't guarantee me at least 30 hours a week, this literally isn't worth my time. And I hate that I'm having this interview one day before I have the hearing, because, well, depending on the results of the hearing, I don't need to be desperate and take the first possible position presented as a possibility to me. I could wait for something that, oh, I don't know, definitely pays the bills rather than just provides me with an income that's insubstantial. Now, it is a work-from-home position, it's a remote position, and I would be delighted, absolutely delighted to work it, to be in that position, but not at 1675. At the last escape room company I was making, oh, it's 1750? Is that right? Let's double check that. Might have been making around 17, actually, 1725. God, it's been well over a year at this point. Let's look at my notes. $16.50 is actually my final amount I was making at the past escape room. So $16.75 would be a quarter more than a year later. And at 20 hours a week, it's just not, it's not cutting it. It's not cutting it for where I live. My rent is about $1,300 a month, plus, food, plus utilities, plus whatever else. Roughly comes out to about $1,565 per month, or $1,600 per month, depending. Well, that sounds like a lot, isn't it? Yeah, well, rent ain't cheap in the city. I live in a studio. I am not, not living in a place that's easy to downsize, and I'm stuck on this lease until June? Can't recall. June, I think. May or June. So, at least until then, I need something that can meet that criteria. And unfortunately, it seems like there have already been plenty of applicants for the position, which means that I don't think they'd be very pressured to raise the amount that they're paying. It's a larger company, it's very standardized. I don't expect a lot of wiggle room there, unfortunately. And as they are hiring on a good number of people, I do imagine that, well, I don't like my chances there. Now, I should be applying to other things. Certainly, that's just what's been on my mind this week. And Wednesday, I also, right after the interview, am running our first, our episode 1 of our Blades in the Dark campaign, which I'm very excited about, but I'm apprehensive. I'm nervously reviewing notes, consuming as much media in the genre as I can, just trying to hit the ground running. So those are active stressors, right? Current stressors. I mean, on top of that, there's also COVID, which is at its worst in the United States and continuing to get worse every day with little to no mitigation, little to no substantial aid. Our federal government is in a transitionary state, one that, in all likelihood, will not provide any further meaningful stimulus or any further stimulus by the end of the month, meaning that I need, checks notes, $900 to meet that 1,600 threshold. Actually, that 1,540 threshold is my bare minimum if I don't buy groceries. In order to pay for February's rent. Now, there is an eviction moratorium until the end of March here in Washington, but, that still a lot to worry about. And, it's been about a year, right? It's coming up on a year that we've been quarantining and isolating and distancing. And I'm really, I need to meet new people. I need to get the fuck out. I need to go on dates. I need to get some kind of feeling of something new, because I really just, I have some great people in my life, but I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels, spinning my metaphorical wheels, not getting any traction. Because, it's all well and good sending really heartfelt messages, and talking on Discord or phone calls or whatever with people who are far, far away, but, it's not the same. Is sharing space, as physical, sexual intimacy, as, close platonic intimacy. No, I'm melancholic. I miss my city. I miss exploring my city, walking around it at night, watching the rain on the water, or the moon and stars reflect off of the bay. I miss staying up all night and then going to get a coffee or a beer first thing in the morning just to try and stay awake, and then feeling energized when the sun finally comes up. Winter is hard enough up north, without also being trapped inside for the most part. Yeah, so this is hard. It's weighing on me in quite a few ways right now. Now, don't get me wrong, I fully recognize other people are suffering, other people have it worse than I do. So I don't want to hold the spotlight, but I do want to, give my feelings a chance to breathe, if you will. They are a little suffocating right now. Now, to be fair, around New Year's, someone I like a lot asked me if I wanted to hang out, but I turned them down because I'm still feeling nervous and anxious about hanging out with people in person for obvious reasons, but also my grandfather having passed away. What, just over a week ago now? From COVID-related illness. It's a struggle. It's a very real struggle that I'm wrestling with. I can definitely feel increasingly the wear on my mental health. Now, I'm a very resilient person. It's easy to be resilient when you kind of sit low in the water anyway. It's a bit more of a stable position. But yeah, I'm definitely noticing there's some long-term erosion happening here. And it's very hard to meet that erosion, meet that difficulty. Yeah. Now, the anxiety is so visceral right now that I'm wanting to reach out to people and talk, but when I start doing it, I lock up and I don't have the words. And I just kind of stumble, trapped in the mire of a feeling, of an uncomfortable feeling, like there's something I need and I can't put my words to it. I can't put my mind on exactly what it is. It's a malaise. No, that's not quite the right word. Dis-ease. I am at dis-ease. And I've really run out of things to substantially distract myself with. I've watched the entirety of Peaky Blinders all over again. I've made it through the first season of Penny Dreadful. Again, great show. Both of them great shows. Been watching through as much Victorian drama and horror and whatever else set in the 1870s, 80s, 90s, early 20th century. Been playing through Dishonored, which is kind of nice. Like a walk in the park is the way I'm playing it, but yeah. Feel like I'm losing my damn mind with how things are going, with how the world is, how this country is, more pointedly. God, and there's so many small things eating at me. Like, I have a crush on this person, and that person, and that person. And maybe more. Yeah, 4, I think. And I'm not sure if they know that I feel how I feel because I haven't expressed it. Because, you know, it doesn't feel appropriate for various reasons with these people. I'm trying to feel it out more, talk to them more, see if it's, you know, just passing fancy, or if it goes away with time. And there's a couple of folks I have more meaningful feelings for that have been a bit distant, a bit hard to talk to. I've talked about I'm being ghosted by at least a couple people right now who are going through some stuff, so it's understandable, but also, like, I have a great deal of admiration for my ex, Cora, and terminating the entirety of any relationship that we had by expressing that she didn't want me in her life. Now, obviously, I think, in many ways, I much rather would have preferred that she didn't want that. But she did want that, and rather than ghosting me, though she did take a long time to work up the courage, energy, chutzpah, whatever, to say it, she did eventually say it. And God, I appreciate that so much more. I mean, I was fucking pissed at the time. But in retrospect, I appreciate it so much more than false pleasantries and empty sentiments and promises. I haven't wanted to think about her, like, ever, really, except in, like, controlled circumstances. It does seem that she's well, which is good to know. She has a few very public-facing platforms, and I do not stalk her. I do not try to... I don't make fake accounts to follow her with to keep tabs on her. No, just like every 6 months, I'm like, I hope she's okay. And I go and check, and I see she's okay. And that's nice. Because, yeah, I still think that she's an incredible person. In a lot of ways. And the world is definitely better off for having her in it. I've worried about her family in this last year, and her. It's such an interesting idea, isn't it, to not be a part of each other's lives anymore? Because, you know, pedantically, that's kind of impossible. We all affect each other, especially when we're in the same community. But even somebody on the complete opposite side of the globe who you'll never meet, their life affects yours. We're in a self-contained ecosystem here. And you can't ever completely cut anything out of it. Not really. Even if you put someone on a rocket, launched them out towards the sun, and vaporized them and the rocket entirely, that would still change, albeit briefly, minutely, the patterns of solar wind. It would slightly obfuscate the sun, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percentage of the sky. The world would, as a result, be incalculably different. Yeah. Now, there are people who have more or less been cut out of my life, who don't have as public platforms, but we have mutual friends and acquaintances, and I ask after them from time to time, in the same way. Because if I have loved you at any time, I never smother that spark completely. I let it turn into an ember, slowly grow cold. But I don't throw away the ashes or desecrate the site where it once burned. If anything, I enshrine it and honor it and try to learn from it. I'm a strange person. I'm a sentimental person. A daydreamer. So yes, it's nice to know that she's well. Insofar that any of us are well. She's alive, at the very least, which is nice. And good to know. What a terrible time. What a terrible time it is that people in their 20s and 30s should wonder after a year has passed if their friends that they haven't spoken to in a year are all still around. Their family, however distant, haven't been decimated. Yeah, terrible times. Just full of terror. Not terror horrible. Is it horror? Is it terror? Well, I'm not terrified of it. I sit in horror of the inaction, of the complacency. But not shock. Desperation, certainly. Grief, absolutely. So maybe horror isn't the right word, horrifying isn't the right word. You take my meaning. Yeah, this is exhausting. Quite exhausting. I'm very tired. So I hope above hope that by the end of the week I will have had a productive hearing positive outcomes, find myself not only retroactively removed the debit against my... Not debit, pardon. Reduce the charge against me, but retroactively credit me for the many weeks that I, as a consequence, missed out on. Nothing nice. If nothing else, it'd be fantastic to remove a 16,000 sword of Damocles hanging over my head when I have, about $600 in the bank account. Yeah. Well. I'm not having an anxiety attack. I'm not freaking out, but it's the kind of worry that sinks just below your skin like an itch, raising your blood pressure, your heart rate, just imperceptibly so that you're always slightly uncomfortable, slightly unsettled, unable to fully take your mind off of it, to fully immerse yourself in anything else. I had a few, oh god, blessed, maybe 20 minutes last night, around 11:30 maybe. I took a very hot bath and was able for a short while to just disassociate and disconnect and relax, and holy fuck, that was nice. But then the blinking of my phone signaling that I had gotten yet another message shook me out of it as it lit up the dark bathroom. It was a message, to be fair, that I'd asked for, and I'm appreciative of, but... Oh... I hope that this year makes a fool out of me. That my pessimism and worry turn out to be nothing but anxiety. That my doomsaying and dread sowing might be miscalculations, misreadings. I want so badly to be wrong and for the grim future I see in front of us to just be the fantasy of a tired, sad mind. What was it on the first that I was talking about COVID again in depth, saying as a percentage of the general population who had died, we had already lost more people than World War I. Obviously, in terms of total people we've lost, it's more than World War I, but it's also more than as a percentile of the populace. Yeah, it's not worth digging into again, but it's been on my mind. Naturally, it's been on my mind. Yeah, fuck. I'm trying to be grateful for the quiet. Grateful for the time that I have. Grateful for the shelter and protection I still enjoy. As fragile and vulnerable and terrified as I feel my lack of control, as much as I struggle with chores piling up, depression making it hard to act, this eating away, this corrosive decay of feeling powerless and without meaningful autonomy. You know, as difficult as that is, I know it could be worse. No, it could be so much worse. Did you have conversations in the early COVID days with people who were like, oh, it's just the flu. It won't be that bad. Everybody's overreacting. Now, granted, there are still some people deeply, deeply ignorant who are trying to desperately hold on to that. But, oh god. I distinctly recall my cousin. He's a little older than I am. Making a post like that back in late March, early April. And the thought did pass my mind, did cross my mind to dig up spitefully that post he had made and comment on it now that our granddad has passed away. I didn't. I'm not going to. There is a quiet, angry part of me that just wants to shake these people so badly. Shout, wake up, wake up. It's not helping anything. It's not. I have worried that people haven't responded to me because they've learned somehow this thing that everybody else seems to know, why I'm terrible or awful or people don't like being around me. And I say this thing because in my irrational, anxiety-fueled fear, I don't know what the thing is. There is no specific thing. Now, I'm sure there's a litany of small things. I'm imperfect. But in my mind, in this paranoia, there's a specific thing that I don't know, that's just out of my reach, that I can't see because I'm so close to it and I'm within it. Why people don't like me or talk to me or want to be around me. Now, the truth is, there's so many reasons why people might not have the time or the energy for me, might not prioritize me. Some of them certainly could be aspects of my personality, my appearance, my behavior. But the lion's share of reasons are externalized factors. And even as I've had so many people, the last week alone, emphasize that they like me, small things that they like about me, build me up, I'm still, God, having a very hard time right now. Now, I posted about it last night. I am in desperate need of affirmation. Ugh. God. And that's such a difficult place to be. It's such a difficult place to be when you're wanting to grow and form new relationships. Such a dangerous place to be. It's dangerous because that want, that need, that urge can lead you into relationships or dynamics that aren't healthy in any respect, just because you're trying to get that feeling. Can lead you to dishonesty, manipulation, in order to meet those same ends. That's dangerous. It's been 45 minutes, but honestly, I think I'm good here. No, we haven't hit anything earth-shattering, groundbreaking. I haven't really responded with my typical, let's say, bouts of passion. But I'm quite tired. Quite worn. Quite worried. Tuesday won't be bad. Tuesday will just be filled with anxiety and apprehension of what's to come. That interview, I'm very confident about it. I've done the job for a company that is consistently rated better than theirs. I won't bring that up. In that community, they're all friends. They're all artists and, designers working toward trying to facilitate the same sort of experiences. While the company I worked for is generally rated higher in terms of quality, in terms of business success, this company that I'm applying for currently, much more so. Much wider spread, much wider appeal. And yeah. I think, I'd be an excellent candidate. But there's some stuff to talk about. The game on Wednesday, oh my god, I'm looking forward to playing that and just not fucking thinking for a while, or just thinking about that and building that and playing together and having fun. Oh my god, that sounds nice. I've been wanting that like every fucking night this last week. I'm so... Yeah, I want that distraction and suspension of reality for a little while. It's absolutely a coping mechanism. It's absolutely yeah. But it'll be quite a couple of days. We'll see what Tuesday has to offer. But for now, I think I'm gonna wrap up, and I'll say, toodaloo, take care. I will see you tomorrow or whenever else. So until then, take care. Bye bye.